Welcome to the Educators Among Us podcast, where we share motivational messages and inspiring stories for and about educators. Your host, Scott Barron, is author of the critically acclaimed book, Love 'Em and Lead 'Em, and provides powerful insights and wisdom for those who heed the call to teach, coach, lead, and serve at all levels of education.
This is Scott Barron, and I'm so honored to be your host for the Educators Among Us podcast. This is a special program because we get to talk about not only schools, but especially those who lead and work and change lives within education systems and learning organizations throughout North America and even around the world. And it's a real privilege. We're grateful for the commitment of so many to not only be a part of a learning organization, a school and other types, but also to speak into the lives of other people, to invest in them, and to be ready for that opportunity to provide a bit of inspiration and guidance, and to develop new skills, and just to hopefully be a part of a team that's making a difference within their communities. Thank you for all that you do and for being a part of conversations like this. Today, I get to talk to a really special friend and colleague, Alan Metcalfe. Alan is the founder and leader of Metcalfe Architecture and Design in Philadelphia, and has a real passion for especially education. While he loves designing buildings and other things, we get to have a lot of conversations around, but how do we get schools right? How do we find ways of enhancing the experience, and through a variety of different methods, including things like interpretive master planning and other techniques? He's taught me a lot. I mean, I've learned a lot about schools and how things work, and we've worked together to figure out how do we not only create beautiful buildings that are really functional, but also they actually create opportunities for joy. Actually create opportunities where there's a chance to love people, and there's a human aspect to this, because every school has a heart and soul, and I know Alan and I share a real passion around that kind of work. So Alan, thanks for being a part of this conversation today and joining us on the Educators Among Us podcast.
My pleasure, Scott. It's so fun to be on your podcast. We've been lecturing together many times over the past couple of years, and now I get to talk to you and your fans about about the world that we're in. And your introduction almost didn't leave me any room to elaborate, because it is really about people and about spaces that facilitate learning and education, and, in a word, joy. So thanks.
For sure.
You're right.
Well, one of the things we like to kind of set the tone with in conversations like this is to focus and reflect for a moment in your story. Who is an educator who significantly impacted your life, and why?
Well, there's been a bunch, and it really has made me interested in designing for schools, because I understand the impact that one person can have on a life. It is like, they don't tell you that when you're coming up, how important teachers are, but if you have a good one, you know it. And I'll say, the one that really put me on the path for architecture is Margaret Floyd. I was at Tufts University studying the history of architecture and through the world of art history. And here's what she did. She noticed me. That's it. She noticed me, and she called me up one day. I mean, I was a very good student of hers, but she called me up. She was a little bit like a school marm, and she said, "Now, Alan, listen, it's the end of the year, or getting near there. You could be a magna cum laude if you just worked a little harder," right? And I did, and I got that great honor, and it sent me on my way to architecture school. But she taught me to see and to write. And I went to some fancy prep school, and she said, "Your writing is not that good," and which really humbled me. She taught me how to write. And then, after I graduated, and I went on to be a carpenter ultimately, and then 10 years later, or 8 years later, at architecture school, which was always the plan, I said, Margaret made such a difference in my life. I'm going to send her a note. And I sent her a note, and she never wrote me back, and I was very disappointed. And then 8 months later, I got a postcard saying, Margaret would have loved this card, but she died. And she taught me another lesson. She taught me say thanks. And I think you and I have talked about this, just to be grateful and to let the people you know in your life, let them know that they made a difference. And this teacher really made an impact on me.
It's a powerful story. It's interesting as we've had a chance to speak to different, leaders and educators and others around the world. They often, they reflect on the educator who most impacted their life. Very often, it does include those aspects of accountability, but
Yeah.
also of assuming the best, of having
Yes.
aspirational, to say,
Yes. She
"I
said, I
believe
know,
in
I
you.
believe in you.
You can
That's
do
what she
this."
said.
Right?
And she was
Yeah,
right. So it's
that's
all,
so
for
exciting.
in a nice way, it's all her fault. It's great. So she's it.
Yeah, that's and it's interesting. I've had a chance to visit with you, of course, in Philadelphia, and some of the
Right.
things that you've designed there, and other places, and of course the beautiful canopy walk there that's there at the park there in Philly, and other places, different schools. Of all the things you've designed within the school campuses, what are two of your most favorite projects?
The way we think about design is, what is it like to come into even before you go to campus? What's the experience? What do I see on the internet? What do I see what's the sign like? Do I know where I am? Do I show up? What do I see? And Abington Friends School decided that they wanted to make a place that really reflected their ethos and their pedagogy. So they created an outdoor learning space that integrated learning and physicality and physical experience. Because you and I know, Scott, that the physical is a part of learning and growing up. Every parent knows this too, by the way, right? So this is a space that's outdoors that you see when you drive up. And I think that I'm very proud of this space because it tells the story of who they are. And the secret is that it cost maybe the size of it. It would cost like 10 cents on the dollar to building a new building. And everybody goes, oh, I need a new building. You don't always need a new building. You need to look at your campus and see what it has. And if it's got a space out in front of the door, maybe that's where the playground is. You have to consider security issues and safety and all that. But the idea, and you and I talked about this in our Memphis school that we were looking at, that driving up and seeing happy children playing tells the story of that school, tells that you believe in community. It's right at your front door when a family comes to visit. You believe in community, you believe in exercise, you believe in learning about the natural world. So Abington Friends is one of my favorites. And then Wissahickon Charter is another one. And that school was one of our first and really reflected the way we think about schools as containers for people and their experiences, and their humanity, not just a place to house people and have a teacher stand in the front.
Yeah, not just be a place where books are stored and curriculum gets dispensed. It's actually a human dynamic that happens.
Yeah. So this school, it has a covered entrance, great. So you get out of the rain and it says, you are welcome here. And at the end of the day, we're going to cover you and take care of you. So people don't think about that. You walk in the lobby, there's the head of school is there, and that's an operations issue. But I always think it's important to see the faces of the people that are taking care of your children every day. And they say, hey, Johnny, did you do your homework? Like, there's accountability. You were just talking about that, right? So there's accountability. And then there's 2-story glass wall facing an arboretum reflecting the mission of the school, which is take care of the earth that takes care of us. So it's all there, right there in the middle. And instead of having an auditorium, the lobby is the auditorium, and it's enough to accommodate most of the school because the school doesn't have a lot of money. So we think that taking care of the way people live their lives, taking care of the community is what we can do best. And then we're not educators, but we help educators, and we create spaces that they tell us they need. So that Wissahickon really does it, and all our work subsequently has reflected that.
Yeah. So as I mean, you obviously your team has been involved in designing uh, places at hospitals and museums
Right,
and outdoors park spaces, but schools are kind of distinctive, right? Because this is a place that not only is a place for a gathering, but it's a long-term relationship. I mean, people go to a school for at least months, if not years. And so there's sort of a home away from home kind of thing that we're
right.
trying to create. It's not a temporary, typically relationship, right? So, as you've had a chance to interact with educators and as you've seen sort of a wide variety of different types of schools and school leaders, a question I have for you is what's the biggest challenge that you think needs to be solved in education now? Right? Because I mean, there certainly are issues around buildings and curriculum, but what's the biggest challenge?
You and I know that, and everybody that came through COVID knows that there's real need for a sense of community and a sense of well-being. And the world that we were in beforehand is so different now. And it's not just students and their families, it's the staff. Like one of the things that you and I like so much about the way we think is you have to pay attention to the people that are your representatives and are taking care of your children and cleaning the building, not just your teachers, but administrators and staff to all pull together. And if they don't, if they feel ignored and that their home life is in conflict with work, then they're not happy and then they don't make a happy school. So I just think that being in touch with staff and what they need is really important. And by staff, I mean the community at the school and then the teachers and the students. But it's pretty simple in some ways, at least to get started, is asking the question, what do you need? What do you need? And how do you feel about, what's your day like? And the exercise that we do that you and I know well is interpretive master planning, where we develop stories about how people enter the campus, the first time visitor, the prospective family, the staff that's been there for 30 years. Where do you go? And you find out, what's it like every day? You find out that in the case of one school, all the bells and whistles are there for the visiting families and maybe the students, and some of the staff don't get nice bathrooms and they feel hurt, right? They feel ignored, and you can't give everything to everybody, but at least to acknowledge it and figure out a path forward.
Yeah, that idea of caring is so important. I think your emphasis on that is critical because we talk about we're a family, we're a community, and then well that requires having enough of a relationship where you do listen to opportunities and
Yeah,
then you actually solve for those challenges. You're right. We don't keep doing the same things and asking the same questions. Like I see a
right.
lot of schools, they'll survey them school themselves to death, right? They keep asking a question and everybody's wondering, well, yeah, but when am I going to do something? When
Yeah,
am I going
and
to move
that's
the
that's
needle on this?
called, what is it? Survey fatigue, right? You have to do something. You can't just keep asking it and saying we're doing something. You have to do it and set a schedule. And one of the things that you do that I like is you set a schedule. Like, all right, where are we now? Have we done it? Have we shown results? And we're going through that at our office right now. As a matter of fact, today we had a meeting about changing the way we are and the way we think. And a lot of it is based on work styles and what do they need. And I mean, there has to be a happy medium, right? But you get it.
Alan, you're also a musician. And
Right.
I think it's one of the things I love about you is that you literally travel with a guitar.
I do.
We've
Yeah.
traveled to different cities, and I watched you get on the plane, and like the first time, I was like, "What is he carrying?" It's like, and then you stuck this little guitar up into the luggage area, and I'm like, he's bringing a guitar? What is this? Right? And then I realized,
Because of
oh,
a
you're
lot of
really serious,
comments.
but and you love playing the guitar, and of course playing jazz music and other
Right.
things. And I've watched even really old videos of you online
That's right.
of your from an early age, really
Mhm.
exercising that gift that you have.
Right.
How do you think that musical talent and development has impacted your life?
Well, for one thing, if nothing else, is for me, is how I decompress. I listen to music and
It was like
improvise against
therapeutic.
it, and I play music, and then it's a social lever, and it also I'm in a band, and I was listening to someone talk about playing in a band. When you're improvising, you're playing a lead, and it's coming out of your head. It's still only, if you're in a quartet, you're only 25% of what's going on. And it's very similar to schools or any organization, that it teaches me to cooperate and listen. And music is like, the YouTube is so full of all this dopey stuff, but there's a lot of wisdom in it. And one of the wise things is not playing, is listening and not playing, and shutting up a little bit makes the music sound better. If you just play, it's boring, and the people sitting in the audience know you're not really listening. But if you play, it's like, actually, it's it's akin to talking, where you and I are talking. I'll talk for 30 seconds, and I'll stop, and then you'll say something. And that's the way music is. It's a conversation. And it's really impacted school design because it's all about conversation. And we've had great success. We're thinking of putting together a proposal, and part of it is with Pinecrest, and who you know well. And they're really happy with our work. And they're happy with our work because we're listening to them, and we stop talking. Our agenda is not,
Mhm.
here's our idea. It's like,
Right.
what do you want to do? Because
Right.
we got a million
Well,
ideas.
I think it enables you also to go beyond some of the functional aspects, right? Because sometimes in designing buildings, right, there's a certain ratio that you're supposed to have in
Right.
terms of square footage per student and for the
Hmm.
bathrooms and of course hallways and lockers and all the things that
Right.
are supposed to go into schools, right?
That's the beginning.
And
Right.
yeah, right. And that's important, right? But I think there's also a music.
Hmm.
There's also a harmony that you're trying to create within a
Right.
school.
And
And
well,
and
you and I
so
have talked
often that
about
gets
beauty,
lost. Yeah,
right?
the beauty.
And, I think we can't underestimate students and children as well as adults, but beauty really impacts and makes people stop dead. And so, yes, I think that that's what we learned. And so I always try, and, like, in a kitchen, as an example, instead of making it all beautiful, I'd rather spend a lot of money on one piece of stone that's the center counter. And everybody goes, ooh, and they ignore the rest of it because it's something beautiful. It's my trick, right? And instead of making everything pretty nice, you spend a lot of money on one thing and make everything else not quite as fancy.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, and that's of course that's what you did. I think at the music school that you
Right.
designed the building for. I mean, watching the before and after of that was so astounding to me because it was so sort of industrial from the beginning, and they kind of were hosting music classes in this building, and then with through the transformation of that design by listening to them and seeing what they were trying to create, now you created an experience that began at the drop off, right?
Right.
Because the covered walkway going in, the portico, was actually the lid of a grand piano,
Right.
right? And people, and I love your story where people could pull up to that, kids could go, oh, they get me,
Yes. Right.
right? I can connect here. These are my people.
Yes. And for a little kid, first day of music school, that's scary, right?
Right.
And if they see a sense of humor
Yeah.
and someone else, they can see it themselves without being told it's a music school. They went
Yeah.
like, "Oh my God, look at that, Dad!" And the dad may have not have noticed it, right? And kids love power; they love to have control over the world and to notice
Autonomy.
things
That's
first
right.
and
Yes.
educate their parents, right?
Yeah.
So, yes, you're
Yeah,
right.
for sure.
and play.
Well, that's what I think that is a distinctive that I've really learned from you, and that's why I was excited about sharing some of your story. Is that there are people out there who recognize that schools particularly have a heart and soul, and that there is a way to create a beauty in it, and that's one of the
Hmm.
passions that we have about education. Is that, listen, schoolwork is hard. I mean, we're taking all these families and we're putting them, with all their, we like to say, their features and faults, right? And we're putting them all together. And the idea that you're going to bring all the tumult and the sort of the background of all these people, put it together, and suddenly it's going to come sort of this peaceful endeavor. It doesn't work that way, right? Schools are actually challenging places because of the nature of what they're supposed to do. I mean, growth by itself, it's hard, it's painful, it's work. And then you're forcing people to get outside their comfort zone. And it can be a place that isn't so industrialized in its nature, but actually is designed to provide a canvas for harmony, a canvas for bumping into each other, for, even as I think it's Brene Brown uses the term rumbling, right? We're gonna do some rumbling, but when we're done, we actually have a joy. We're gonna learn through it, and we're gonna have some reward in the sense that we love each other. We actually have a connection with each other, and we're okay having conflict because that's just part of the journey. But we're going to learn and grow, and we can actually design spaces that convey that opportunity as well as that hope, because there's a hope in that as well. Is we get to
And
create a path
joy. I mean,
forward
you
for
use
kids.
that word right in the beginning, and to make joy, it's like everybody's all busy with all this stuff, and then they see an object, and we'll use the piano lid as an example. Something that everybody knows, it's a piano. It's a little funny, and you can say, "I'll join you at the piano lid." People, like, they stop and they remember, and it makes your school memorable. It could be some sort of pole that has faces inscribed in it, or names, or something like that. It could be so many things, but to have something that makes your building uniquely about you, your school, your community, is what I strive for, and something that will follow the mission of the school. And like I said, the tall windows at Wissahickon Charter are just an example of, oh, I get it. When you come in, it's pretty subtle, right? But people get it, and they've commented on it. And the last thing is, you don't want to hit someone over the head with it. You want them to discover it. Really, like, we call it setting the table. We don't want people to feel like, oh God, like, as a quick example, the most, when people feel like you've been told by an architect how to behave, they really resent it. So we try and be subtle. And there was a study in the 70s about dormitories, and if the beds and the desks were attached to the floor, there, and you couldn't move them, the students would be a lot more mess up the dormitories a lot more. There'd be violence. They're pissed. If you could let them move them around and give them agency, they were much more relaxed. So that nobody wants to feel like some architect that they don't know who they are, or some owner, some principal, someone is telling me what I got to do, right? So these are subtle, important things.
So as we think about then for educators, and you think about what you've learned, because you've worked with a lot of schools in the past couple of years, even that have, I
Yeah.
think, expanded your repertoire as well as sort of your knowledge. I think you have a much deeper knowledge around what's happening in schools. What questions, or even what question, should educators be asking today in order to most significantly elevate the quality of the experience they're delivering? What's the question that you're
I'm
finding
going to
is
say
most
it
important?
again. It's, what does your community want, and how do
Okay.
you? It's but it's the question is how. The real question that needs to be answered is, how do you find out what your community wants? And because many times for a strategic plan, everybody will say, all right, great, we're going to increase enrollment, blah, blah, blah. And then you get this master planning, and it's, all right, well, we need a new building. Well, why? Who is it serving? So that's really the question, is to make sure that your community wants it and it'll benefit them and everybody will get behind it. Plus, it makes donors happy. It makes a township happy if you need a zoning change. All these people, if you can show true evidence. So it comes back to what you actually do, Scott, which is planning. It comes back to asking the question, then making a plan, and then following it. I mean, this is the ideal, and everybody knows that half of plans get followed. But if you I met with a prospective client, and he said, I don't want to plan, I just want to do it. I was like, really? Suppose all these buildings
Do
that
what?
you want are, stop. You couldn't do something because that other building you already built is in the way. And he said, yeah, you're right.
That's a good point, right? So the question is, are we asking the right question, right? Because
and
I
the
think
right
that's
people,
what it comes down
right?
to, and the right people, right? Exactly.
And
So
we
that's
need
what
to make sure that we know as designers, we're working for the school, and the school as a good partner would say, all right, you have to listen to these people, and those people, it might be a little difficult, so they need to shape it. And our best projects are with really smart, self-actualized clients. And that is, like garbage in, garbage out. They hire us, but they don't give us the tools to work it. It's not going to happen. But someone that really, wants us to be there wholeheartedly, and like our client in Pittsburgh that we're working together with, that they came from a tough place, but they're really engaging and they're listening and they're working hard. And
Right.
This is not just for fancy schools. This is for any school that has,
For sure.
It's a complicated organism. And
That's right.
I love working for the schools that are not, I like working for all schools, but it's challenging to work for the schools with a smaller budget, but they need it, and everybody deserves a great school, and it can be reflected.
And they have options. That's the beautiful thing. They have options.
They need options, and they need to see what they have.
Right.
Right.
Well, that's one of the things. That's why I wanted Alan to be on our conversation today. Is I think there's an emphasis here on authenticity, and that's the planning process isn't just about putting up a building or even kind of putting up goals. Like if you're doing the strategic planning part, that's where our company in School Growth has had a chance to work with Metcalfe in designing schools. They're handling the physical aspects, and we're looking at the culture and the governance and the administration and the learning and all those domains that make up the heart and soul of the school. And so it's fascinating to be able to design spaces that actually build culture, because what we found is that
and we
culture
support
isn't just
important thing, Scott, is supporting that culture.
Yeah, yes, because culture is
and
not
why
just
we like working together is you help them create their culture, and then we go, oh well, now we have to help you maintain that culture and give it a form.
Right.
That's so much
your
better.
Ultimate strategy, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
Build it and they'll come is like, ugh. No, it's the other way around.
Exactly. Well, Alan, thanks for joining me today. I sure do appreciate your time and being able to, of course, our team loves working together with you and your team and collaborating and really designing schools that are both authentically and sustainably excellent. And it's a joy to have partnered with your expertise, because you bring again a joy to the work. Love even the time we get together with you and Margie and the family, and just kind of share experiences and grow together, because we're all learning, right? We're all trying to figure this out, and schools going forward have some hard things to figure out together, because we are trying to develop a school in a new era of education. And so it's exciting to be a part of that journey. We don't have all the answers, but we definitely have the right guidance to figure it out. Right. And that's a joy. That's a joy for sure. So Alan, thanks so much. Appreciate you a lot, and look forward to continuing working together with you.
Great. Thanks, Scott. So nice to talk to you.
Well, this is Scott Barron with Educators Among Us podcast, and we're thankful for you. And we just want to remind you, Love them and lead them, my friend. This is Scott.
Thank you for joining us for the Educators Among Us podcast and for your courageous commitment to this noble calling. We get you and the challenges of this work. To stay connected with this community, be sure to subscribe to our podcast and weekly encouragement at educatorsamongus.com.